Good morning, beautiful ones. I have a story, of course, and this is about me. I actually took a fall down um, a cement hill driveway and tried to brace my fall with my hand, knee jerk reaction, and I dislocated my wrist and I broke my um, medial. And so I went to the emergency room, and in the process, they needed to get my wrist back in place. And so they tried this old fashioned way with weights and stuff. It was really cool. It looked like Chinese fingers and it felt actually very comfortable because trying to stretch everything back. But my um, wrist got stuck going over a bone, so it didn't make it back. So they had to put me under to put my wrist back in place. So the first time they went to do it, the sedative that they were going to put me under it was my IV burst, so they had to um, change the place where my IV was. Well, they brought a physician assistant in, and his name is Nick, and they said he was the best with bones. He was the best orthopedic they had around on staff, and so on. So Nick came in, and I had the physician by my IV, the PA Nick, and then I had two ED techs that were going to cast, and then I had a respiratory therapist, a nurse, and a few other people that wanted to watch this procedure. So um, Nick came in, and the IV busted, and Nick kind of had he was like frustrated and and then he left, and I could feel that. And then the nurse came back in and said, "Oh my goodness," she said, he's so frustrating to me. He was yelling about the IV, and um, I said, "Well, you didn't even put the IV in. It was the previous shift's IV." And the nurse even said it wasn't that great, but I didn't have anything to eat or drink before the procedure all day, and I knew that my veins, when I have liquids, and she says, "Well, I didn't even tell him, but he just acts like that." So we get around and get prepped for the second procedure, get a new IV, and everybody comes in. Everybody's in, and Nick walks in, and the same group of people are there. And I looked at him and I said, "Now wait, Nick," I said, I don't want you doing this procedure until you change your attitude." And he looked at me, he goes, "I'm not mad at you." I said, "I'm not saying you're mad at me." I said, "Your anger and your frustration still affect me and everything you're going to do." I said, "And you have a big procedure here to do right now. And I need you to be in your best mindset because everything you say and think and do is all affects all of us." I said, "And I need you on your A game because trust me, I know what you have to do." And he looked at me and everybody's eyes all bugged out except the physician. The physician's, I watched him because he was on my left hand side. He's like, I could see him, I could hear his thoughts. He was like, "She has every right to say this." And it was cool. Everybody else was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe she's talking to him like that." But they don't know me because, I don't care who I'm talking to. I'm going to talk like that. So Nick looked at me and he says, "You're right." And he stepped out into the hall. I saw him kind of pace back and forth. And honest to goodness, it wasn't more than 1 or 2 minutes. And he came back in. He goes, "Okay, I'm ready for this." And he did. And he really was. And I'm like, "Okay, yes, you are." And he said, "Yep, I'm ready for this." And I said, "Well, thank you because, you know, we just all, we all need to stay in a better positive mindset. It all affects everything." He looked at me. He says, "Absolutely." And so they put me out, and when I came back in, came through, I had my uh, uh, wrist set, and Nick came back and um, with x-rays and afterwards, and he's like, "Look at this." I said, "Oh my, Nick, it's perfect. You did it." He goes, "Yes." He was so proud. And he looked at me, he goes, "I really want to thank you. I really want to thank you for that." He says, "You really taught me something." And I'm like, "Oh, good." And then you think, okay, sometimes you could teach them, but they might go back to their ways. And then the nurse came back in, and the nurse actually um, knows my daughter, but we didn't know that until after kind of the procedure. We put everything together, and she used to work with her. And she said, I want to tell you that that Nick has, I've worked with Nick many months now, and he's never said thank you. And she said, after he was in your room, he told me thank you twice. And for different things I was working on different patients with, he goes, I have never had that. And I'm like, good, that's good. And then the nurse texted my daughter probably about 4 or 5 days later and said, okay, I love your mom. She's one of my new favorite people because Nick's changed. He really has changed, and he's still grateful and thankful and everything. So I was so happy. Sorry. And I then I of course was telling the story, and I had my mom and my sister and family. My son was there, and so on. And I was explaining what happened, and my sister, who was very very gifted too, and my mom said something first. I think it was my mom, and she comment was, she goes, why, you're always teaching no matter what situation, everything you're in, you're always teaching. And and she's like, I don't know why you have to get hurt to teach. And I'm like, that's a good question. Me neither. And my sister popped in her head, and I could tell because it just came from above and it was straight down through her head. And she said, you changed Nick's life. You really changed Nick's life. You don't understand. And then of course, I'm like, that's wonderful, but it does. I have to go through pain to help people. I have no problem with it. And then, out of pocket expenses through all this thing. I don't need to, I don't need to, I'll teach people without having any negative effects on my body and stuff. And we're all laughing. And then my sister said, no, she says, something really changed in Nick. You changed him so much that whatever, you prevented something that could have happened, or many things that could have happened from Nick. And she said that, she said that change probably was worth everything you went through. So I started crying, and I was like, well, so I just can't deny that. Had a lot of confirmation chills in the process too. So I just wanted to pass that on, that hey, I'm still healing, doing pretty good, trying to keep my my optimism. The I've had anybody that's worked on me and stuff, I've had their little pep talk, and most everybody's completely been on the same page. And I had to have surgery on my wrist, and the surgeon, they were all phenomenal, and they believed everything I believed. And the surgeon came back and said it was a beautiful procedure, it was perfect, and everything's perfect. And I said, yes, everything's going to be perfect. So I'm healing, and I just wanted to pass on that beautiful little life hiccup. And hopefully we are all getting through this pandemic, living, growing, and becoming such more compassionate, community-driven, loving people through this. Love you. Bye. Please share, like, and comment below.